Welcome to another episode of Tell Me About Your Damn Book. I'm your host, Stephen Lomer, and with me today is a talented romance author who originally hails from New York, but we'll try not to hold that against her. Ladies and gentlemen, Laurel Ostiguy. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very excited to have you.
Me too.
I'm going to start with your bio. You were born in Queensbury, New York, a town sandwiched between Lake George and Saratoga Springs, where you still visit with friends and family. You currently live outside of Boston and work at a financial firm. You attended Plymouth State University and graduated in 1997. You also received your master's degree from Northeastern University in 2003. You are married to your college sweetheart, Jeff, and you have 2 sons. When you're not working, you love to spend time with your family and friends, as well as skiing, skating, swimming, writing, or just enjoying the beautiful New England seasons. You're a member of the Association of Rhode Island Authors and Romance Writers of America. You are currently working on the 3rd book in the Onondaga State series. Onondaga, right?
Yes.
All right.
You said it
Nice.
Right. It's great.
Tremendous. Tremendous. Okay, so Queensbury, New York. What were the circumstances that brought you from there to the Boston area?
Well, my sister and brother-in-law both went to Northeastern. And so after I graduated college, I moved back home, and then about 6 months later, my sister said, "Do you want to move to Boston and, kind of come to the big city?" And so I moved in with her and her future husband, and I've been here ever since, so since 1999.
By far the most important question of this entire interview. Sox or Yankees?
Red Sox.
Okay. God. We can continue then. Well, I'm sure there would have been people watching this who would have been fine with Yankees, but we don't want those people watching this. So,
correct.
So we will move on from there. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
Yes, I have an older sister, Danielle. She lived in Massachusetts for quite a while. She lives back in New York now. And then my brother lives in Arlington, Mass.
Okay.
And he's actually in a band, Psychic Dog. So he plays a lot in Cambridge and Davis Square and stuff. So, and I'm very close to him and his wife and
Neat.
2 kids. Yeah,
That's cool.
So I get to see him a lot. Yep.
Okay. Were there any other authors or writers in the family?
No. Well, my uncle wrote a book. Quite a long time ago, Nose to Nose with Joe Glecko, so about the football player.
Oh, wow.
And he was a writer for a newspaper in New York.
Okay.
Yes. So
All right.
that was my uncle. Yep.
Okay. So I will tell you that of all the authors we've had on the show, you were the first one to have another writer in the family.
Oh.
All of the other authors have said that they were hardcore readers, which is important, and that's how they became writers, but there were no other writers in the family that sort of drove them in that direction. So congratulations, you were the first one to have an author in the family. Not just to be the author in the family, but to have another author in the family. What made you decide to become an author?
Well, I mean, like you said, I love to read. So my dad was a big reader. So I grew up reading a lot of books. And then it just became one of those things where you go into a bookstore, and I kept walking around looking at all the books there, and it's one of those moments where you just go, why not me? Like, why can't I be one of those people? And my friend was actually on the cover of a book. Wow. And yeah, he's a model, so I said to him, would you mind putting me in touch with that author? And I just have some questions for her. And she was so kind. And next thing you know, she's giving me her editor and her book designer. And so once those things start happening is when you kind of go, I think I can do this. And so it kind of just snowballed from there. But yeah, I really started just getting in touch with another author and asking a lot of questions and realizing I could probably do this. So.
Nice. And when was that?
So that was probably 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah, it took me about 4 years to write the first book.
Okay.
I learned a lot in the process.
Didn't we all?
Yeah, I was nervous, and there's a lot of self-doubt, a lot of, I'm not so sure I'm ready, cut out for this, or can I do it? And, and life goes on too. I mean, I had 2 boys and jobs, and, so it's, you just have those moments where you're like, I don't know if I can have the time to do this, or I want to invest the time. So
right,
yeah.
Right. Regarding your 2 boys, do they know that mom is an author? Do they?
Oh, yes.
Do they understand what that means?
Yep.
And how old are they?
My oldest is 10. My youngest is 7.
Okay.
Yeah, so when the first book came out, they were quite young, but it was one of those where they couldn't wait to tell people. You know, my mom wrote a book, and you know, and that always strikes people conversation. They kind of look at you like, "Did you really?" And you said, "Yeah." You know, I wrote, and now they're very proud of me, and they tell everyone. They hand out my bookmarks. And, yeah.
So they are tremendous hype men
yes,
for you.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Wow.
It's free publicity.
Nice.
So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What drew you towards romance as your genre?
I think in particular this story, I just had an idea and I couldn't get it out of my head. And I used to commute a lot into Boston, so even from where I live now, it was a good hour and a half there, sometimes 2 hours back into Boston. Yeah, it's only 30 miles, but yeah, so I kept thinking about this story, and there is definitely a large romance element to it, but you know, when I try and pitch my books, I say to people, it's not a standard romance novel. You know, new adult is very different than the young adult books that kids are very interested in. This is sort of very much in between. But yeah, I guess in the romance part of it, there's a strong element of that. So I kind of put myself in that category. But I like writing about romance. I mean, love is important to everybody, so I think it's something that everyone can relate to.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Now, we had another romance author on previously. She stated that the essence of a romance novel is that they all have happy endings. Is that true?
No.
Oh,
no, not
okay.
at all. Yeah.
So you have a different take on it.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I mean, I think in life there's very few happy endings in the real aspect of it. I mean, I think people want to read books that everything works out well in the end, but I don't really think that's realistic. So
Okay.
I try and throw in some curves that'll make people really go, ooh, you know, I've heard people say, I really cried during it, or I thought about this, and I want to invoke more feelings than just, wow, that was a great ending. Yeah. Everyone sailed off into the sunset. Yeah.
What do you feel are common misperceptions about romance authors, if any?
Yeah, I guess for me, I've tried to describe my books a little differently. I don't want, you know, if you say I'm a romance, I think people, which I don't know this for sure, but in my mind I'm thinking they think of the man on the cover with his shirt open with the woman with the long dress on and her hair's you know, and it's like that. I understand, and they're very popular, and those people do very, very well. But that was not what I wanted to do. Yeah, I wanted to make it a little different, have some surprise elements into it, but I do think that's when you say you're a romance writer, that's what people think. And so I think in particular for romance writers, a cover is really important, because I think it really can set like, oh, okay, this is a little different than what I envisioned when I said it was romance. So
Right. So your books are very different from those, what they call bodice rippers.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, these are all based in college, so
Oh.
yeah, that automatically puts them in like that new adult era. So I do talk about drinking and drugs and, you know, but I keep all of that as very PG. You know, I didn't want that to be the basis of the books either. So,
Right.
and that can be a large element of college life in general. So I thought I'm either going to go there and make it a big deal, or I'm just going to make it a part of the, you know, the community where, yes, kids are at a party, they're drinking. Yes, I know they're underage, but kids go to college between 18 and 22 mostly. So
Right.
it's a given that they're underage. So you know, that was part of the thing that I tried to just not make a big deal about it. And
Romance is where the money is. There's a study that says romance as a genre owns 74% of the market on Amazon, and that the other 26% is divided among all the other genres. Why do you think that is?
wow, I did not know that.
I did the research, and I was amazed.
Right.
Yeah,
Wow.
those poor sci-fi and fantasy authors, they are pushed down because 74% of the sales are through romance. Does it just appeal to a bigger market? Is there a universality to it? What could the explanation be?
I know, that's interesting. And I would have thought sci-fi was really
Sure. Yeah.
very big. I mean, when we go to the book events, I mean, we see a lot of the fantasy, the sci-fi, and I
Yep.
see a lot of people at those tables, I think, because they're trying to get taken out of their normal lives. And
Right.
I'm very fascinated with that people can actually describe a whole new planet, universe. Stuff. Yeah, but I guess to your question, I think maybe it's because everyone wants that happy ending and that feel good, and you almost can guarantee it when you pick that book up. I mean, it's almost written in the title, like love, and so I'm guessing that's why. But I'm surprised to hear that.
Yeah, it's true. Do you imagine that it's mostly women who are reading books like the ones you write, or do you think it crosses over? Do you think men are enjoying them too? Yeah,
I mean, I know men that have read mine, but I'm waiting for that moment where someone I don't know says, "I read your book," and then that'll tell me that question, because it's always people that I know, and and out of the kindness of their heart, they actually take the time to read it. And some of the men have said, I really liked it. I thought it was very different. You lost me a little bit when she was putting her makeup on, and that kind of stuff. And I said, oh yeah. I mean, I can see that. Yeah. So I don't doubt it that it's not written directly for men, but I have had men tell me that they've read it and they're like, I really thought it was good. It was different than what I would have thought when you said you were a romance. So
right.
Yeah.
You're an indie author.
Yes. Yep.
What's that been like so far?
Fabulous.
Okay.
But I have learned a lot, and I, whenever I meet someone that's interested in becoming an author, I always say, reach out for questions, because I had someone that did that for me. Mm-hmm. And I was hooked up with some really good people that I can trust, people that I'll never meet, but I don't mind sending them money to do certain things because I trust them. Mm-hmm. And so I guess the only thing is, I would say to someone, just really researching and finding the right people and good people that you can go back to time after time again, beta readers, an editor. Mm-hmm. I met a wonderful photographer. I know she lives in Michigan. I'll probably never meet her, but boy, do we email and interact, and she found me a model for my third book, and I just trust her. And I trust that when I send her money, she's going to send me my results back. And you just need to find those people. So I have learned a lot. I've been burned a few times. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's pay it forward. I find a good person, a good beta reader. I want the next author that wants to come out to use the same beta reader that I had a great experience with. So I guess that would be the thing that I would tell someone next is, it can be difficult. You really got to trust that when someone says they're going to do something for you, that they're going to do it for you.
Right.
And yeah, but I think it's been wonderful. I think it's a great experience, and I can't imagine going to somebody that would tell me what to do, or say, I don't like your cover, you shouldn't have done that. And it's like, I think the best thing about being an indie author is you're just going with your heart and what you want to put out there. And
sure.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah.
So.
Did you pursue traditional pub before you went that route?
I didn't.
Wow.
No.
Wow, straight into indie pub. Wow.
I just really wanted to try it, test the waters, see if it was possible, what it would be like. And I've just stuck with it. I think it's wonderful. And everybody I meet that does it, it's like they seem happy. Mm-hmm. So I just want to continue doing it.
Sure. Yeah. So it's safe to say you would not pursue that now that you've established yourself as an indie author. You wouldn't pursue the big publishing houses or anything.
Yeah, I don't think...
unless they offered you a ton of money.
I was just going to say, anybody looking at this video, is this where I look into the green light?
That's where
anybody
you look
listening to this that would like to read my books, and, I'd be a fool to say no, but yeah, I guess it's just you're so busy doing this that I can't imagine a full-time job, 2 kids, trying to get my books out, and then going the whole other route of trying to find an agent, and it's daunting, and I just not so sure I have the time for that too. So
the time and the energy.
Yes.
Yep. It can be exhausting. Yes. When we first met, you didn't even have an author website.
Right.
At that point.
Yeah, you remember that.
Are you a technophobe? Or was it just you were the cart before the horse?
Yeah, definitely the cart before the horse, 100%.
Okay,
yep.
And you've rectified that.
Oh yes. Yep. Yeah, laurelostiguy.com. It was as simple as can be. I don't know why I did it, but it's funny that you mentioned that, because when we met at that event, I called my husband and I said, I need a website. And he was like, I can do that. And he's digital marketing. I mean, he does all this stuff. And he was like, I know, I've been telling you that. And I said, okay, well, I'm like in a session right now where they're all saying, if you don't have a website, you're an idiot. And I was like, so I'm calling to tell you I feel pretty dumb right now. So I think by the time I got back from that event, I had laurelostiguy.com. So.
Yes, I believe that's right, because then shortly thereafter you put the word out on Facebook.
Yes,
So please check out my website.
Yeah,
I finally put it together. Yes. The other great thing about that particular event is you were the very first person that I told about this show, and that was almost a year ago.
Yep.
And I had come up with the name and I had come up with the concept, and it gestated for a while, and there was a lot of stuff in between that had to happen. But here we are, finally, on this very show. Yeah, exactly, writing books. But here we are on that very show that I told you about at that very show. So that's very exciting for me.
I was excited back then. I thought it was a great idea. And I think I remember telling Satin, like, you got to go ask him, like, he's going to do a show. And I
that's
thought
right.
It was great. Like, this is the indie author vibe that I like. Like, people just really get to know each other and become friends and appreciate how much work you put into this, and having me here and doing your own books. And, it's amazing group of people and community. So
so we have a gimmick on this show that we are contractually obligated to live up to.
Okay.
So Laurel Ostiguy,
tell me about your damn book.
I love that. I do. I love it. So it's called Last Goodbye, and it's the first in my series. It didn't start off as a series, and so the first book really introduces you to all the characters in college. But what I was trying to say earlier is why I think this is different than a typical romance is because my thought for the book was, whether or not we believe that someone else takes someone's place when someone passes away. So the whole concept of the book is a young man in high school passes away, but the main character in the book feels a sense of belonging to him that she can't really explain. And so she almost goes into a slight depression because she constantly feels this loss. And so she goes to college, and she meets a boy, and he ends up sort of telling her along the way that he was best friends with the kid that passed away, and she was described to him, and he has a really hard time believing that it's real. He doesn't think that, first he thinks he sees a ghost, he thinks, he describes someone else, it can't be her, but all these clues start to unravel that tell him that yes, it's her. And they were supposed to meet in college, but the kid that died, the other kid takes her place, and she ends up falling in love with him. And so the one character, Tank, that's the friend, he gets really upset because he kind of sees Nathan now as the guy that took his friend's place, and so the whole book is really him trying to tell Abigail, Nathan's really not the one for you, it was my friend, and here are all the reasons why, and here's all the things that he told me, and here are all the things that, could possibly happen, and he ends up being her, protector, and he does protect her from some really terrible college situations, and so it's a different sort of romance. There's definitely some death components to it, and then the college life is very confusing, and so I tried to bring that into it. I did base all my novels in the 90s, so I wanted it to kind of go back to that time of, I felt too with the excitement of, I remember my roommate and I going back to our dorm room, hitting the answering machine and, praying to God he called, that kind of stuff.
What's an answering machine?
Where you couldn't get people on text. It's so easy to get a hold of someone, and Facebook, and so I wanted to take that entire element out. So this is really, you run into someone and that's a story. You catch eyes with someone and that's the story. It's not, who's that? And I'm going to find him on Facebook, and then I'm going to stalk him, and then I'm going to do this and that. And then, I have their phone number and I'm going to text them. It takes all of that element out. And so I wanted to bring it back to, plus I'm a big fan of the 90s music, so I wanted to talk about that a lot. But yeah, that's really the basis of the book. So there is definitely romance in it. There's definitely turmoil between the two male main characters and Abigail. So it's a lot of spinning and turning of them, but yeah, and just that element of surprise of what really happens if someone dies and does someone else take their place, and she struggles with believing that, and then it really comes to light, and so that's
wow,
the basis of the book.
That's really cool. Were any of the characters based on real life people that you knew?
Some of it in college is. I really enjoyed, one of my favorite things is naming people. So I loved giving names to characters, and a little nod to my friends. So anybody that sees their name in there, it's not a coincidence. I mean, I definitely put people in the book. But I tried not to tell anyone's story that, maybe they wouldn't want to be told, or it was between them and I just didn't want anyone to feel like you really told that story and made it. So all the characters, while they're named and may look similar to somebody, none of the stories are really true.
Okay. All right. And what sort of age range do you think would enjoy your book?
Anywhere from, I would say, 13 to 65, 70, yeah.
80, 90,
yeah.
Just on and on,
yeah,
right?
I'll have to put a little bit bigger print, but yeah, like my neighbor across the street, he's in his teens. He's and he, like, I went trick or treat, brought the kids, and your book was my favorite book of all time. Yeah, so and I said to his mom, I hope she's like, oh no, I thought it was great. Like, it's not. So I tried to make it so people could read it and not be, why'd you recommend that? So that was that PG-13 element. So
right.
Yeah, I tried to keep it so young adult. Kids going into college or about to go into college can absolutely read it, and it's nothing horrible.
Do you think they'll get a kick out of 90s technology and 90s music and 90s jargon?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope they appreciate it.
Because I lived through it, and I still get a kick out of it when I think back to it.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is the book is part of a series, and so the second book is out, and you're working on the third. Is that right?
Yep. The second book, Longing to Be, is the first person tale of what happens to her in this book.
Okay.
So Bree is one of the characters, and it tells you what happens in the first book, and then the second book is based off of the main character in the first book, Abigail. Her roommate Laura, she gets a job at the radio station and tries to kind of solve some mysteries and some things that are going on. And again, she's got romantic interests now, and there's a lot of twists and turns in the third one. So I'm guessing the third one will be out in the fall of this year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yep.
So you must be wrapping it up at this point. Okay.
I just sent it to my last beta reader the other day.
Nice.
So I would have had 6 this time around, which I'm really happy about, because I've gotten some really good feedback. I've changed a lot. And then I'm due to my editor in June.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I think she'll probably have it for a couple months, and then so I'm guessing the fall.
Right.
Yep.
Nice. Excellent.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah, I am. I'm very excited.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. We have a segment on the show called Questions from the Great Unwashed.
Okay.
And these are social media questions that have been submitted for you.
Oh, wow.
You
that's interesting.
never know what you're going to get.
Yep.
They come in unfiltered. I will present them to you, and then you can do whatever you like with them, answer them, look at me like I'm crazy, whatever you like, whatever your natural reaction is for the questions. Are you game? Are you game for the questions
game.
from the Great
Yep.
Unwashed? Okay.
I'm already happy.
So Tony from Vermont, okay?
Yep.
Tony from Vermont says, "You're very pretty."
Thanks, Tony.
That's it. Tony doesn't understand what a
Thank you,
question
Tony.
is. Tony doesn't understand what Questions from the Great Unwashed is all about. That was it. That was all we got.
Oh,
But
I like
so
Tony
there you
from
go.
Vermont.
So I guess that sets the table. Tony from Vermont. Lisa from Massachusetts says, "I met you at an author event and you seemed so serious. Why so serious?"
Oh, I guess I don't know. I don't take myself too seriously.
No, you don't.
No. So maybe I was nervous. I could
Oh.
have been nervous. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there is a nerve element to it that I'm not a very good salesperson. That's the other thing. Yeah. So I don't do. I tried more to give a pitch. and I'm not very good at it. So I know that about myself too. So
Okay.
I like talking up other people more than saying why you should buy my book. So
Okay.
yeah, so I was probably nervous.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So less serious and
Yes.
more nervous.
Yep.
Because you're clearly not serious here.
No,
You're having a ball.
yeah.
Right. Right. Okay.
This is awesome.
Okay. Celia from Maine asks, if you wrote yourself into a romance novel, what would the title be? Oh, that's a good question.
That is a great question.
Wow. As we pause to ponder this.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking of the same thing. Like, what would I call? What would the title of a novel that I wrote myself into?
Maybe
be?
Wine Lover. I think that's probably a good one.
The Moonshine Gal.
You're right. Yeah.
Something like that. Wow.
Never come empty-handed. Yeah. A lot of ways you could spin that one too.
Yeah,
so I
sure,
don't know. You may
sure.
want to edit that one out, but yeah.
No, I'm
Yeah.
leaving that in.
Okay.
No question. That stays in. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that was Celia. That was a really good question. Thank you. Westside Johnny asks, "What's the funniest joke you know by heart?" I guess this ties in with you being serious.
Yeah,
If you
I
know a joke,
I'm on the
then
spot, so.
then you can't be completely serious.
Oh my God, I know a lot of jokes. We have Alexa, and I love when she tells jokes. And I'm trying to remember one. Well, my grandfather used to tell this joke. So a guy walks into a doctor's office and he keeps saying, teepee, wigwam, and the doctor says, "You're 2 tenths." Stupid, I didn't even tell it right. Sorry.
That's brilliant. Brilliant. There you go. Westside Johnny, there's your joke. Feel free to tell it and take credit yourself. And finally, Kara from Toronto asks, what advice do you have for an aspiring romance novelist?
Oh boy, I would say write what you know. Think about anything in your life that is touching, is maybe a moment where it kind of changed you, and base a book around that. I mean, that's when my father passed away. I was 25. It was a really big deal. It was very suddenly. We didn't know it was coming. Nothing. It was like one day you get the call, and so I think there's an element of that in my books because I know about it, so I can write about it. And I think people want to read and believe what your words. So that would be my advice.
And you also earlier said to go the indie pub route.
Yes. Yep.
as a little bit of additional advice for Kara from Toronto. So I always wrap up these videos with the same question for every author. It's 100 years in the future. We're all dead and gone, hopefully. A young person goes into a library. Hopefully there are still libraries 100 years in the future. Approaches the librarian and asks about Laurel Ostiguy. What does the librarian say about you?
What does she say about me? She'll probably say, "You must have seen all the movies based on her books. Why are you here trying to check it out?"
That's great. That's tremendous. Yes. So it's Hollywood next for you?
I would love that.
Okay.
I mean, some people joke and say, "Oh, they make a really good made-for-TV movie," that type of thing. But yeah, I always say, "Your lips to God's ears." Yeah. I mean, who knows? But
okay, excellent. All right. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode of Tell Me About Your Damn Book. I would like to thank my guest, Laurel Ostiguy. The book is Last Goodbye. It's available on Amazon and wherever quality books are sold.
Exactly.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and cheers.